Picture this, my friends. It's 1834, and you're standing in the shadowy corridors of the royal palace in Madrid, the air thick with the scent of wax and decay. You're not just anyone, you're a royal. Physician, summoned in the dead of night to the private chambers of the late King, Ferdinand VII. The king is dead, but your work is far from done. Queen Regent Maria Cristina stands before you, her eyes glistening with tears, her voice trembling as she delivers a request so bizarre it makes you question your own sanity. Your hands shake as you approach the bed where Ferdinand's body lies, draped in silk sheets, his presence lingering like a malevolent specter. Even in death, this man, who terrorized Spain for 2 decades, seems to mock you. But it's not his face that draws your gaze. No, it's what lies beneath those sheets, the anatomical monstrosity that defined his reign as much as his cruelty, paranoia, or betrayals. Ferdinand VII's grotesquely oversized, bizarrely shaped endowment, a secret so scandalous that historians whispered about it for centuries but never dared commit to official records. Welcome to WTF History, where we unearth the strangest, most shocking tales from the past that make you wonder how humanity survived its own absurdity. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment to let me know where you're tuning in from. I love knowing we're connected across the globe, piecing together these ancient mysteries like detectives of the bizarre. Today, we're diving into the twisted saga of Ferdinand VII, a king whose personal demons didn't just haunt him, they tore Spain apart. To understand Ferdinand, you have to go back to the toxic roots of his existence. Born on October 14th, 1784, at the opulent El Escorial Palace, he was the product of a royal bloodline warped by centuries of inbreeding. The Spanish Habsburgs and Bourbons had a nasty habit of marrying cousins to cousins, uncles to nieces, creating a genetic nightmare that churned out monarchs with physical and mental quirks. Ferdinand's parents, Charles IV and Maria Luisa of Parma, were first cousins, their marriage a cold arrangement to keep the royal blood pure. Spoiler alert, that purity came at a brutal cost. The genetic lottery was rigged from the start, and Ferdinand was the unlucky winner of a prize nobody wanted. From his earliest years, it was clear something was off, not just in his temperament, though that would come later, but in his very body. As he grew from a chubby infant to an awkward adolescent, court physicians noticed something alarming. Let's not mince words. Ferdinand was developing in ways that defied medical textbooks. By his teenage years, the whispers in the palace were deafening. Servants gossiped, courtiers smirked behind their fans, and foreign diplomats sent coded messages back to their capitals about this Spanish embarrassment. What were they talking about? Ferdinand's member, to put it delicately, was not just unusually large. It was grotesquely so, described as a billiard cue, with a base as thin as sealing wax and a tip as thick as a man's fist. One physician, whose notes were buried in the Vatican archives, called it long enough to serve as a walking stick. In an era where classical Greek ideals, small, refined, aristocratic anatomy, were the standard, Ferdinand's condition marked him as a freak of nature. This wasn't something he could hide. The court was a fishbowl, and every servant, page, or noble who caught a glimpse of the prince. Changing had a story to tell, and trust me, they told it. Imagine being Ferdinand. You're the heir to the Spanish throne, raised to believe you're practically divine, destined to rule a global empire. But every snicker, every whispered joke, every sidelong glance chips away at that divine armor. You're not just a prince, you're a spectacle, a punchline for a young man grappling with the weight of his future crown, This was more than embarrassment. It was humiliation, deep and festering, that would shape his entire character. His childhood wasn't a fairy tale to begin with. His father, Charles IV, was weak-willed, more interested in hunting than ruling. His mother, Maria Luisa, was infamous for her affair with Manuel de Godoy, Spain's de facto ruler, who strutted around like he. On the place, young Ferdinand watched this soap opera unfold, learning early that power was fragile, trust was a luxury, and betrayal was just another day at court. But it was his physical abnormality that truly defined him. The court was a cruel place, and Ferdinand's condition was the worst-kept secret in Madrid. Servants giggled, courtiers made sly remarks, and foreign ambassadors sent home reports that were equal parts clinical and scandalized. One incident, recorded in a court chaplain's memoirs, tells of a young page who accidentally saw Ferdinand changing. The poor boy didn't just lose his job, he was flogged, and his family was exiled from the city. The message was clear. Nobody could witness the prince's shame and walk away unpunished. This wasn't about vanity. Ferdinand was learning to wield his power to compensate for the powerlessness he felt over his own body. He was becoming secretive, vindictive, and cruel, traits that would only deepen as he grew older. As Ferdinand approached marriageable age, his condition became a medical and diplomatic crisis. His physician, Dr. Francisco Flores, left secret notes describing a member, with a base no wider than a man's thumb, expanding to a circumference that defies natural proportion, with a length exceeding any recorded human specimen. The notes mention a peculiar curvature and additional tissue growths that served no biological purpose. This wasn't just a cosmetic issue. It made normal intimacy impossible without serious intervention. Royal craftsmen were tasked with creating marital aids, custom cushions, supports, and devices to make relations feasible without injuring his future wives. Imagine the awkwardness of those meetings. Serious-faced artisans sketching pillows for the prince's situation, all while trying to maintain the dignity of the Spanish crown. Ferdinand's desperation to fix himself led him down bizarre paths. He became obsessed with potions, elixirs, and quack remedies promising to normalize his anatomy or boost fertility. Court alchemists and foreign physicians were brought to Madrid in secret, each peddling miracle cures, ground. Rhinoceros horn, powdered pearls, you name it. None worked, but Ferdinand's desperation made him an easy mark for charlatans. He spent fortunes, convinced the next potion would make him normal. It's heartbreaking. This young man, burdened with a kingdom's expectations, chasing solutions that didn't exist while the court whispered behind his back. By the time Ferdinand was ready to marry, his psychological scars were as deep as his physical ones. His paranoia wasn't entirely irrational. People were mocking him, but it was starting to consume him. He saw betrayal in every bow, every smile, every compliment. His tutors noted disturbing changes. The shy prince was becoming cruel, dismissing servants for minor infractions, punishing anyone who looked at him the wrong way. This wasn't just a man preparing to rule. It was a man preparing to lash out at a world that humiliated him. As we leave this grim beginning, we're stepping into a new chapter of Ferdinand's life, one where his personal shame collides with the pressures of royal duty. His first marriage is just around the corner, and trust me, it's a disaster that sets the tone for everything to come. Stick with me, hit that like button, and let's see how this twisted tale unfolds. And so, we find ourselves in 1802, with Ferdinand VII at 18, standing on the cusp of adulthood and the Spanish throne. The palace is alive with anticipation because the prince is about to marry, and the court is hoping, praying, even that this union might bring some stability to a kingdom already showing cracks. Welcome back to WTF History, where we're peeling back the layers of Ferdinand's bizarre life, a story so wild it feels like it belongs in a Gothic novel. If you missed part 1, go check it out too. Understand how his cursed genetics and a court full of whispers shaped him into a paranoid prince. Today, we're diving into his first marriage to Maria Antonia of Naples and Sicily, a union so catastrophic it could have been scripted by Edgar Allan Poe. Grab a snack, settle in, and let's see how this young princess walked into a nightmare she couldn't escape. Maria Antonia, Ferdinand's first cousin, is just 17 when she arrives in Madrid, her heart full of romantic dreams. She's beautiful, intelligent, and genuinely excited about her new life as a Spanish queen. The court pulls out all the stops for the wedding: golden carriages, cathedral choirs, streets packed with cheering crowds. Maria Antonia has heard Ferdinand called the Desired One by his supporters, and she imagines a fairy tale prince waiting for her. Oh, how wrong she was. Her education, like most royal women of the time, was heavy on music and etiquette, but light on the realities of married life. Her advisors gave her vague, blushing explanations about royal duties, leaving her completely unprepared for Ferdinand's condition, that grotesque, oversized member we talked about last time. The court, knowing full well what's coming, keeps silent, letting her walk into the trap. The first hint of trouble comes when Ferdinand's valet approaches Maria Antonia's ladies-in-waiting with odd requests. Special preparations are needed for the royal bedchamber. They say custom cushions, bottles of oils, and implements that look more surgical than romantic. The ladies are assured this is standard for royal couples, but the secrecy raises eyebrows. The wedding night arrives, and Maria Antonia, still in her gown, waits nervously, expecting something grand. Instead, when Ferdinand disrobes, she's confronted with a sight that sends her into hysterics. A lady-in-waiting, writing years later, described the scene. The princess screamed, "Monster! Monster!" as she backed against the wall, pointing at her husband's anatomy. Described as a great club with a thin handle, it was unlike anything she could have imagined. Its size, bizarre curvature, and strange growths were utterly alien to this sheltered young woman. What followed wasn't intimacy. It was a medical procedure. Physicians were called to calm the hysterical bride and explain what was required. Custom cushions were arranged, oils applied, and the process began under clinical supervision. Maria Antonia, still reeling, was given laudanum to dull her panic, but it couldn't erase the trauma. The act was so painful, so alien, that it left her sobbing. Ferdinand, already insecure, took her revulsion as a personal attack. Her screams cut deeper than any courtier's whisper, confirming his worst fears. He was a monster. The marriage quickly became a nightmare. Maria Antonia's duties were less about affection and more about enduring a ritualized ordeal with physicians, equipment, and drugs turning every encounter into a grim spectacle. Servants whispered about blood-stained sheets and the queen's hollow-eyed exhaustion. Ferdinand's paranoia grew with every encounter. He saw Maria Antonia's distress as betrayal, convinced she was sabotaging their efforts to produce an heir. Her health crumbled. She became addicted to laudanum, withdrew from court, and spent hours in prayer or staring blankly at walls. The pressure to conceive was relentless. Ferdinand consulted astrologers and alchemists, timing their encounters by lunar cycles and drinking bizarre potions. One grim account mentions leather restraints crafted by royal saddle makers to hold Maria Antonia in place, preventing her from pulling away. The court buzzed with gossip, and foreign diplomats sent home reports of the Queen's misery. Spain was already teetering, its colonies rebelling, its treasury bleeding, but Ferdinand was too focused on his bedroom failures to notice. In 1804, a glimmer of hope appeared. Maria Antonia became pregnant. The court rejoiced, and Ferdinand felt a spark of pride. But the pregnancy ended in a miscarriage in the 4th month, blamed on stresses on Her Majesty's delicate constitution. In truth, the trauma of Ferdinand's condition made pregnancy unsustainable. A second pregnancy in 1805 was worse. She carried nearly to term, but the labor was brutal, nearly killing her. The baby didn't survive, and Maria Antonia's spirit broke. By 1807, at just 21, she died of fever and complications, a polite way of saying years of trauma, addiction, and abuse had destroyed her. Rumors swirled that Ferdinand poisoned her, tired of her failure. The mysterious death of the palace apothecary, who left a cryptic letter that vanished, fueled the whispers. Ferdinand's grief was complicated. Publicly, he mourned. Privately, he seemed relieved, already planning his next marriage. As Maria Antonia's tragic story fades, we see the first cracks in Spain's foundation, with Ferdinand's personal failures spilling into the public sphere. His next marriage, just on the horizon, will only deepen the chaos, pulling Spain closer to collapse. Stick with me. Hit that like button, and let's follow this dark path to see where it leads next. The echoes of Maria Antonia's screams have barely faded from the palace walls, and already Ferdinand VII is looking to the future, his desperation for an heir driving him forward despite the wreckage of his first marriage. Welcome back to WTF History, where we're unraveling the twisted saga of a king whose personal demons are tearing Spain apart. If you missed parts 1 and 2, go catch up to see how Ferdinand's cursed genetics and a catastrophic first marriage set the stage for a reign of chaos. Today, we're stepping into 1816, where Ferdinand, now 32 and back on the throne after a brief exile, pins his hopes on a second marriage to Maria Isabel of Portugal. But, as you might guess, this union is another disaster, and it's not just the royal couple who suffers. Spain itself is starting to buckle under the weight of Ferdinand's obsessions. Let's dive in and see how his private shame becomes a public catastrophe. By 1816, Spain is in rough shape. The American colonies are in open revolt, the treasury is a mess, and the people are beginning to question their desired one. Ferdinand's first marriage ended in tragedy. 2 miscarriages, a drug-addicted queen, and whispers of poison. His anatomical condition, that grotesque, oversized member, is still the talk of Europe, studied in medical schools and mocked in diplomatic circles. The royal craftsmen are working overtime, crafting new marital aids to make intimacy possible without killing his next wife. The court is holding its breath, hoping this second marriage doesn't repeat the first. Ferdinand, hardened by years of humiliation, is more paranoid than ever, seeing enemies in every shadow and betrayal in every smile. Maria Isabel of Portugal, another cousin in the endless cycle of inbreeding, arrives in Madrid at 19, full of naive hope. The court paints her as the perfect match, beautiful, pious, from a respectable royal house. But nobody's told her the full truth about Ferdinand. Her ladies-in-waiting get vague briefings about special preparations for the wedding night. Just like Maria Antonia's did, the wedding is a spectacle of Baroque excess, designed to mask the growing desperation of a king whose reign is already synonymous with failure. Ferdinand stands at the altar in cloth of gold, his face betraying barely contained anxiety. He spent the week consulting physicians, alchemists, and even a mysterious Ottoman specialist who promised solutions to his royal difficulties. The wedding night is a horror show. Despite the preparations, custom cushions, oils, a medical team on standby, Maria Isabel's first encounter with Ferdinand's condition is traumatic. Servants later found blood-stained sheets and broken furniture, evidence of a coupling that resembled torture more than romance. Isabel, like her predecessor, is shattered. She develops a stutter, flinches when Ferdinand enters a room, and wakes screaming from nightmares about the monster. Physicians describe her hysterical episodes, but it's clear she's suffering severe trauma. Ferdinand takes her terror as an insult, his paranoia spiking. He has her letters intercepted, her food tasted for poison, and her chambers searched for signs of treason. The marriage becomes a grim routine of medically supervised attempts, with physicians hovering like specters. Isabel's health deteriorates. She stops eating, loses weight, and develops a vacant stare. That unnerves the staff. Ferdinand, desperate for an heir, pushes harder. He consults circus performers claiming expertise in unusual anatomical challenges and allows foreign anatomists to observe. His attempts, turning his marriage bed into a grotesque medical theater. Sketches of his anatomy circulate among European medical schools, making his shame a subject of academic study. Spain, meanwhile, is crumbling. The American colonies are slipping away, fueled by propaganda that calls Ferdinand impotent in every sense. Cabinet meetings are postponed when he's struggling with Isabel, and critical decisions are delayed while he chases new fertility techniques. The people, once hopeful for their restored king, see the truth. He's more concerned with his bedroom than their suffering. Bandits roam the countryside, cities simmer with unrest, and Spain becomes a European laughingstock. In 1818, after 2 years of this nightmare, Isabel dies of nervous exhaustion, though private. Letters suggest self-harm may have played a role. Her final words, per her confessor, were a prayer of gratitude for her liberation. Ferdinand's reaction is chilling. He's convinced she was murdered to prevent an heir. He orders multiple autopsies, arrests her ladies-in-waiting, and commissions a death mask he keeps in his chambers, reportedly speaking to it. The funeral is a macabre spectacle, with Ferdinand touching the corpse and muttering about her wasted potential. As Isabel's body is laid to rest, Spain's decline accelerates, and Ferdinand's desperation only grows. Another marriage looms, another chance to chase the heir that's eluded him, but the kingdom is running out of time. Stick with me, hit that like button, and let's see how this tragedy deepens. With the ghost of Maria Isabel still haunting the palace, Ferdinand VII presses on, his obsession with an heir undimmed by 2 failed marriages. Welcome back to WTF History, where we're untangling the dark threads of a king whose personal failures are dragging Spain into chaos. If you missed parts 1 to 3, catch up to see how Ferdinand's cursed anatomy and tragic first 2 marriages set the stage for a reign of despair. Today, we're in 1819, where Ferdinand, now 35 and battle-scarred, enters his 3rd marriage to Maria Josepha Amalia of Saxony. There's a flicker of hope, a pregnancy that shocks Europe, but, as always, it ends in tragedy. Let's dive into this Gothic nightmare and see how Ferdinand's quest pushes everyone to the breaking point. By 1819, Spain is a shadow of its former glory. The American colonies are nearly gone. The economy is in shambles, and the court is a hotbed of fear and gossip. Ferdinand's two previous wives died young, consumed by the trauma of his condition, that grotesque, misshapen member studied across Europe. His paranoia is rampant, with spies watching every move and secret passages snaking through the palace. The pressure for an heir is crushing, not just for Ferdinand, but for a kingdom desperate for stability. Finding a new bride is tough. European princesses know his grim reputation, and some demand separate chambers or personal guards. Maria Josepha, 24, from Saxony, is chosen because her family's financial woes make them willing to overlook the risks. Unlike Ferdinand's previous brides, she's more worldly, briefed by physicians on the special preparations needed. She even brings her own medical devices and a physician trained in difficult marital situations. The wedding is subdued, reflecting the court's exhaustion. Ferdinand is hopeful, thinking Maria Josepha's practical approach might succeed where others failed. But the wedding night proves otherwise. Despite her clinical mindset, the encounter is traumatic, with physicians directing a painful surgical process. Maria Josepha's detailed notes, later found in Saxon archives, describe a scene of grim efficiency. Her detachment frustrates Ferdinand, who suspects she sees him as a medical curiosity. He intercepts her letters to Saxon physicians, convinced she's sharing secrets about his anatomy. The marriage settles into scheduled attempts, each a medically supervised ordeal. Maria Josepha's health holds up better than her predecessors, but she stops eating regularly, loses weight, and develops a haunted look. Ferdinand's desperation leads to bizarre remedies. Astrologers, mystics, even a wandering Oriental guru who calls his condition a dragon's rod, requiring strange rituals. For 3 months, the couple endures incense-filled ceremonies and odd positions. Then, in 1829, a miracle, Maria Josepha becomes pregnant. The court erupts, and Europe buzzes with speculation. Has Ferdinand overcome his curse? He hires extra guards, brings in top physicians, and has her chambers blessed, convinced enemies will sabotage the pregnancy. But complications arise in the 7th month. Likely placental abruption, Ferdinand's interference, mixing mystics with physicians, creates chaos. On May 18th, 1829, Maria Josepha goes into premature labor, a horror show with Ferdinand barking orders. The baby, a daughter, lives only hours. Maria Josepha survives, but dies 3 weeks later of infection and despair. Ferdinand's reaction is unhinged. He refuses to bury them, ordering impossible resurrections. The palace reeks of decay until he relents, sinking into a depression that paralyzes the court. Spain's decline worsens, colonies gone, economy dead, people starving. As Maria Josepha's death mask joins the others in Ferdinand's chambers, he's already looking to a 4th marriage, unable to let go of his quest. The kingdom teeters on the edge, and Ferdinand's next move will push it closer to collapse. Stick with me, hit that like button, and let's follow this dark path further. As the shadow of Maria Josepha's death lingers over a crumbling Spain, Ferdinand VII, now 45, clings to his obsession for an heir, undeterred by 3 failed marriages. Welcome back to WTF History, where we're diving deeper into the saga of a king whose personal demons are destroying his kingdom. If you missed parts 1 to 4, catch up to see how Ferdinand's cursed anatomy and tragic marriages have left Spain in chaos. Today, we're in 1829, where Ferdinand enters his 4th marriage to Maria Cristina of Naples, a union that comes with a shocking twist, a child who isn't his. Let's step into this bizarre chapter and see how Ferdinand's desperation leads to a lie that haunts his final years. Spain in 1829 is a mess. Its colonies are gone. The treasury is empty, and the court is a snake pit of fear. Ferdinand's three wives, Maria Antonia, Maria Isabel, Maria Josepha, all died young, their lives consumed by his condition and his relentless quest. That condition, the grotesque members studied across Europe, is still a source of shame and paranoia. Finding a new bride is a diplomatic nightmare. Princesses know his track record, and many refuse outright. Maria Cristina, from Naples, is chosen because her family needs the alliance. But here's the bombshell. She's already pregnant when negotiations conclude, carrying a child that can't be Ferdinand's. The court knows it, diplomats know it, and Ferdinand knows it too. Yet, in his desperation, he's willing to play along. The 1829 wedding is a farce, with Maria Cristina visibly pregnant and the court pretending it's normal. Ferdinand, clinging to hope, convinces himself it's divine providence. The birth of Isabella II in 1830 should be his triumph, but it's a new torment. He knows she's not his, yet he must claim her to secure his dynasty. Their marriage is a web of deception. Maria Cristina plays the dutiful queen, while Ferdinand pretends to believe Isabella is his. Intimacy, still reliant on marital aids and physicians, is as traumatic as ever. Ferdinand, aging fast, is obsessed with producing a true heir, but his health is failing. His paranoia spikes. He conducts midnight raids on Maria Cristina's chambers, has peepholes drilled to watch her, and subjects her food to absurd-tasting rituals. Servants collapse from the stress, fueling his belief in assassins. Maria Cristina, trapped in this surveillance state, starts to crack. Her intercepted letters reveal a woman losing her sanity, feeling watched at every turn. The court is paralyzed. Ministers face bizarre loyalty tests. Servants are rotated daily, and whispers replace conversation. Ferdinand's obsession with Isabella's paternity is twisted. He compares her features to portraits of Maria Cristina's former lovers, commissioning dossiers on every man she knew in Naples. Spain's decline accelerates. Revolts in cities, bandits in the countryside, a treasury drained by Ferdinand's security measures. The people, once hopeful, see their king as a tyrant whose personal failures mirror the nation's. As Isabella grows under this toxic cloud, Ferdinand's reign becomes a dystopian nightmare, with his paranoia infecting every corner of the palace. The kingdom is on the brink, and his final years will see his madness reach new heights. Stick with me, hit that like button, and let's see how this tragedy unfolds further. With Isabella II's questionable birth casting a shadow over the Spanish court, Ferdinand VII's reign descends into a darker spiral, his paranoia turning the palace into a prison. Welcome back to WTF History, where we're unraveling the chilling saga of a king whose personal failures are destroying Spain. If you missed parts 1 to 5, catch up to see how his cursed anatomy, tragic marriages, and a deceptive fourth union have pushed the kingdom to the edge. Today, we're in the early 1830s, where Ferdinand's paranoia transforms his court into a dystopian nightmare, with everyone, queen, courtiers, servants, seen as a potential traitor. Let's dive into this suffocating world and see how a king's shame becomes a national catastrophe. By the early 1830s, Ferdinand is in his late 40s, and the years have ravaged him. Chronic insomnia, digestive issues, and a tremor betray his fraying nerves. His condition, that grotesque, possibly worsening member, remains a source of torment. Maria Cristina, raising Isabella, is trapped in a marriage that's a psychological cage, her every move watched by Ferdinand's spies. The court is a pressure cooker with secret passages, mirrors to catch eavesdroppers, and a network of informants monitoring gossip. Spain is in chaos, colonies gone, economy dead, people starving, but Ferdinand's too consumed by imaginary enemies too. Care. The palace is a surveillance state. Ferdinand bursts into Maria Cristina's chambers with armed guards, searching for treason. Peepholes let him watch her nurse, Isabella, or pray. Her every gesture scrutinized. Her intercepted letters reveal a woman unraveling, describing life as a glass cage where every breath is monitored. Food tasting rituals are absurd. Tasters wait 30 minutes to prove dishes are safe, and several collapse from stress, fueling Ferdinand's belief in assassins. Ministers face bizarre loyalty tests. Servants are rotated daily, and courtiers speak in coded whispers. Even Maria Cristina's prayers are suspect. Ferdinand wonders if they're secret messages to foreign powers. Ferdinand's relationship with Isabella is a twisted mix of love and resentment. He adores her as his heir, but despises her as proof of his failure. He studies her features, comparing them to portraits of Maria Cristina's lovers, and commissions genealogists to prove her legitimacy, their vague reports deepening his torment. The court is caught in the crossfire. Servants develop nervous conditions. Ministers navigate contradictory orders, and Spain's decline accelerates. Revolts simmer, bandits rule the countryside, and foreign powers, sensing weakness, back regional uprisings. Ferdinand's obsession with his condition and dynasty blinds him to the suffering of his people. As the court suffocates under this paranoia, Ferdinand's health worsens, setting the stage for a final descent into madness. The kingdom teeters, and his next moves will push it over the edge. Stick with me, hit that like button, and let's see how this nightmare deepens. As the Spanish court chokes on Ferdinand VII's paranoia, the kingdom he's supposed to lead is crumbling. Faster than ever, his personal demons dragging everyone down with him. Welcome back to WTF History, where we're diving deeper into the saga of a king whose cursed anatomy and twisted psyche are destroying Spain. If you missed parts 1 to 6, catch up to see how his tragic marriages and surveillance state have turned the palace into a nightmare. Today, we're in 1832, where Ferdinand's health is failing, his paranoia is off the charts, and his court is a house of cards ready to collapse. Let's step into this chaos and see how a king's failures push Spain to the breaking point. Ferdinand, now 48, is a wreck, plagued by insomnia, digestive problems, and a worsening tremor. His condition, possibly exacerbated by a rare hormonal disorder, makes intimacy with Maria Cristina as traumatic as ever. The court is a dystopian prison. Spies, secret passages, and loyalty tests keep everyone on edge. Maria Cristina, raising Isabella II, is unraveling under Ferdinand's relentless surveillance. Spain is in freefall. Colonies gone, people starving, international reputation in tatters. But Ferdinand's too busy fighting imaginary enemies to notice. His paranoia reaches a grotesque peak when he accuses Maria Cristina of poisoning him through intimate contact. He demands medical examinations before any physical interaction, with physicians searching for toxins in her skin, destroying what's left of their marriage. The court is paralyzed. Ministers delay decisions, fearing his outbursts, and servants live in terror. Even his brother, Don Carlos, faces suspicion, with Ferdinand seeing conspiracies in family gatherings. His obsession with Isabella's paternity grows darker. He compiles dossiers on Maria Christina's former lovers, scouring their medical records for clues to his daughter's true father. Spain's collapse is now an international issue. Ambassadors report Ferdinand's erratic behavior, and some nations back regional revolts, betting a fragmented Spain is better than one ruled by a mad king. The treasury is drained by his security measures, secret passages, alarm systems, armies of spies. The people, once hopeful, see him as a tyrant whose personal failures mirror the nation's. Revolutionary propaganda paints him as impotent in every sense, fueling unrest. As Ferdinand's health deteriorates, his reign becomes a feedback loop of fear and suspicion, trapping everyone in his madness. With Spain on the brink, Ferdinand's final days loom, promising a grim end to a tragic reign. Stick with me, hit that like button, and let's see how this saga reaches its climax. As Spain teeters on the edge of collapse, Ferdinand VII's reign is reaching its grim finale, his body and mind crumbling under the weight of a lifetime of shame and paranoia. Welcome back to WTF History, where we're unraveling the chilling tale of a king whose personal dysfunctions destroyed an empire. If you missed parts 1 to 7, catch up to see how his cursed anatomy, failed marriages, and surveillance state turned Spain into a nightmare. Today, we're in 1833, where Ferdinand's health is failing, his madness is peaking, and his court is a house of cards. Let's dive into his final days and see how a king's torment ends in a whimper that leaves Spain shattered. Ferdinand, now 49, looks decades older. Chronic stress, insomnia, and a tremor betray his decline, with physicians noting early signs of cognitive failure. His speeches ramble with accusations against non-existent enemies. His condition, that grotesque member, remains a source of torment. With intimacy still reliant on traumatic marital aids, the court is a dystopian nightmare. Spies watch every move, secret passages crisscross the palace, and loyalty tests keep everyone on edge. Maria Christina, under constant surveillance, is a prisoner in her chambers, her sanity fraying. Isabella II, the daughter Ferdinand claims, but knows isn't his, is a constant reminder of his failure. Spain is in chaos. Civil war looms. The economy is dead, and the empire is a memory. Ferdinand's paranoia is unhinged. He accuses Maria Christina of treason, has her food tasted multiple times, and watches her through peepholes. His obsession with Isabella's paternity deepens. He compares her features to portraits of Maria Christina's lovers, seeking proof she's not his. The court is paralyzed. Ministers fear his outbursts, servants dread mistakes, and whispers replace conversation. Spain's decline is a global concern. Foreign powers back revolts, seeing a fragmented Spain as preferable to Ferdinand's rule. The treasury is drained by his security measures, leaving the people to starve. In 1833, Ferdinand fades quietly, dying of what's called gout, but is really exhaustion, physical, mental, spiritual. The secret autopsy reveals his condition's full extent. A 14-inch member, scarred from years of self-inflicted damage in desperate attempts at correction. Preserved for study, it's sealed in Vatican archives as a state secret. As Ferdinand's body is laid to rest, Spain faces a fractured future, with his questionable heir at the center of a brewing storm. Stick with me, hit that like button, and let's see how his legacy unfolds. With Ferdinand VII's death in 1833, the Spanish court breathes a cautious sigh, but the damage he's left behind is far from over. Welcome back to WTF History, where we're piecing together the saga of a king whose personal failures shattered an empire. If you miss parts 1 to 8, catch up to see how his cursed anatomy, tragic marriages, and paranoid rule brought Spain to its knees. Today, we're diving into the aftermath, exploring how his questionable heir, Isabella II, inherits a kingdom torn by civil war and ruin. Let's step into the wreckage and see how one man's shame echoes through history. Ferdinand's death was a quiet end to a chaotic life, his body worn out by decades of battling his condition and paranoia. The secret autopsy, hidden in Vatican archives, confirmed his grotesque anatomy, scarred from desperate self-surgery. His daughter, Isabella II, just 3, inherits a throne that's more cursed than a prize. Maria Cristina, now Queen Regent, faces the impossible task of governing a fractured Spain. The Carlist Wars erupt as factions loyal to Ferdinand's brother, Don Carlos, challenge Isabella's legitimacy, arguing she's not Ferdinand's child. The court, still steeped in paranoia, becomes a battleground of loyalties. Spain's decline is stark, colonies gone, treasury empty. People divided. Maria Cristina, traumatized by years of surveillance, struggles to rule, her effectiveness hampered by fear. Isabella grows up under this toxic cloud, her legitimacy questioned at every turn. The court's paranoia lingers, spies watch, whispers fuel conflict, and the people see the monarchy as a source of suffering. Spain's international standing is in tatters. Once a superpower, it's now a minor player, mocked for its unstable king. Revolutionary movements gain strength, pointing to Ferdinand's failures as proof the system is broken. The Vatican archives, holding evidence of his condition, symbolize how even intimate secrets shaped Spain's fate. As Isabella's reign begins, the scars of Ferdinand's rule, civil war, economic ruin, international humiliation promise a long road to recovery. As Spain grapples with this fractured legacy, we're left to ponder the broader meaning of Ferdinand's story, a tale that's as much about human frailty as it is about a fallen empire. Stick with me, hit that like button, and let's wrap this saga with a final reflection. As Spain struggles to pick up the pieces of Ferdinand VII's shattered reign, we're left with a story that's both a tragedy and a warning, a tale of a king whose personal demons became a nation's nightmare. Welcome back to WTF History, where we've journeyed through the wild saga of Ferdinand VII, a man whose cursed anatomy and paranoia destroyed an empire. If you missed parts 1 to 9, catch up to see how his failed marriages, surveillance state, and questionable heir left Spain in ruins. Today, we're stepping back to reflect on his legacy and what it tells us about power, shame, and the human cost of absolute monarchy. Let's dive into this final chapter and see why Ferdinand remains history's most twisted cautionary tale. Ferdinand's death in 1833 marked the end of an era, but his legacy lived on in a Spain torn apart. Isabella II, his 3-year-old heir, faced a civil war as factions challenged her legitimacy. Maria Cristina, the Queen Regent, struggled to govern a kingdom scarred by Ferdinand's misrule. The Carlist Wars raged, the economy was dead, and Spain's people saw the monarchy as a source of suffering. Ferdinand's condition, preserved in Vatican archives, was more than a medical curiosity. It was a symbol of a reign consumed by shame. His 4 wives, Maria Antonia, Maria Isabel, Maria Josepha, Maria Cristina, paid the ultimate price, their lives destroyed by trauma and despair. Isabella, raised in this toxic court, carried the weight of his failures. Her legitimacy debated for decades. What makes Ferdinand's story so gripping is its intimacy. His grotesque anatomy, a quirk of inbreeding, wasn't just a private tragedy, it was a national one. His shame shaped a paranoid tyrant who saw enemies everywhere, turning his court into a prison and his kingdom into a ruin. The Spanish people suffered, purged, starved, humiliated, while their king chased an impossible heir. The Vatican's hidden evidence underscores how even the most personal secrets can shape history. Ferdinand's reign shows what happens when unchecked power meets dysfunction. Absolute monarchy gave one flawed man the ability to drag millions down. Revolutionary movements, fueled by his failures, pushed for change, but the damage was done. Spain would struggle 4 generations to recover. This story is a reminder of the danger of power without wisdom, of shame left to fester, and of systems that let one man's demons dictate a nation's fate. The preserved organ in the Vatican is a monument to the destructive power of shame and the cost of absolute authority. As that royal physician in 1834 completed his grim task, he must have felt the weight of a kingdom undone by one man's flaws. Ferdinand achieved a kind of immortality, not as a great ruler, but as a warning of what happens when dysfunction masquerades as power. And that's where we end WTF History. Fans, Ferdinand VII, the most perverted king in history, left a Spain as broken as his own body. His story is a wild ride through human frailty, where a genetic curse became a national tragedy. Thank you for joining me on this journey. What did you think of Ferdinand's saga? Drop a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more bizarre history. Let me know what twisted tale you want to explore next. Until then, keep questioning the past, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay curious,